Hey Guardians, I just want to let everyone know that I do have both a Twitch and a Twitter, and I'm very active on both. Feel free to come give me a follow on both, links in the description. Guys, this is such a weird hand cannon. It's one of the most iconic weapons in Destiny's history, though it was overshadowed by its bigger, meaner brother, Not Forgotten. Both of these weapons originally were pinnacle weapons obtained by completing quests centered around the comp playlist in Crucible, and these weapons were part of the reason that sunsetting originally happened because they used to be insanely powerful. Originally, Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten were 180 RPM precision frame hand cannons, and with the original version of Mag Howl, they could 3-tap consistently and potentially even 2-tap. And as a result, these hand cannons were nerfed several times, and this included changing its RPM from a 180 to a 150 and then to a 140. Now, of course, Luna's is back as part of the Brave arsenal, this time with random rolls, including the new and reworked version of Mag Howl, which we'll talk about in depth because it's an interesting perk. Of course, we'll mostly talk about PvP here. This is a PvP-focused weapon, though there are some PvE options we'll touch on as well. And we'll also spend some time talking about the feel and performance of this hand cannon because it's just a very weird cannon. To be honest with you, I expected to completely hate this weapon. I legitimately thought my video on it would just be me spending like 5 minutes just dogging on it and that was it. But Luna surprised me in a good way. It still has some quirks to it, but it's not a bad hand cannon. I do think it's being somewhat overhyped, but just because something is overhyped doesn't automatically mean it's bad either. It's not a bad weapon, just a very strange one. Now, Luna's Howl is a solar precision frame 140 RPM hand cannon, and when you look at its base stats, it really doesn't look too hot. 41 range, 57 stability, 45 handling, 54 reload speed, and 79 aim assist, average to below average stats for a 140. But where it does stand out is its AE. Luna's has an incredible AE stat thanks to its precision frame archetype. Its base AE is 20, and the precision frame adds another 25, which gives you a total AE of 45. So slap an Icarus on there and you're at 60 AE. So this is a very good hand cannon if you have a very airborne dependent playstyle. Now, as far as the perks go, you can see the barrels and mags here, and this is where things start to get a little strange. Obviously, for your mag, ricochet rounds is probably your best option, though Luna's may also benefit from the increased flinch from high cal, but we'll stick with ricochet because that's what most of us are going for. Now, instinctively on a 140, most of us will usually default to just maxing out the range as much as we can. So a max range roll on Luna's with full bore, ricochet rounds, and a range Masterwork gives you 71 range with a reach of 33.6 meters, 51 stability, and 40 handling. This is very similar to Not Forgotten's stat spread, with the same range and stability, but Luna's does have the slight advantage of having better handling at 40 as opposed to Not Forgotten's truly abysmal 25. On the flip side, Not Forgotten does have Zen Moment, which helps with recoil on it substantially and of course helps mitigate flinch, and I very much wish that Luna's had Zen as well. But 40 handling is still bad, and like I said, Luna's unfortunately does not have Zen Moment to help with that lower stability. And part of this, of course, is due to full bore, so if I were to drop full bore for Hammerforged rifling, that takes us to 66 range, 67 stability, and 45 handling. Range is still perfectly fine at 32.9 meters. The stability, of course, is much better, but that handling is still pretty bad. So let's move on to small bore, 63 range, which still keeps us at around 32 meters, 74 stability, and 45 handling. So yet again, the range is perfectly viable there, stability is huge, but our handling still sucks. So maybe fluted barrel, that takes us to 31 meters with 56 range, 72 stability, and our handling is majorly improved, being brought up to 60. 56 range is still viable, but not necessarily great. And this is one of the quirks that Luna has. Usually I can look at a hand cannon and immediately know what barrels I want, but with Luna's, it's a little more difficult. The stat spreads on it are just very, very odd. And all that is not even included, playing around with Masterworks. But what I will say is this weapon benefits greatly from higher stability. It makes Luna's feel much, much better. So for stats, I think my personal ideal roll would be corkscrew rifling, ricochet rounds, and a range masterwork. That gives me 61 range, 72 stability, and a usable enough 50 handling. Now, in those third and fourth columns, lots of great options for PvP. Third column, Eye of the Storm, Encore, Slide Shot, Enlightened Action, potentially Heal Clip if you're using a build for it. And fourth column, Mag Howl, Kill Clip, Opening Shot, Desperate Measures, Precision Instrument, and Harmony. So let's get the big one out of the way here, the elephant in the room. Mag Howl is not what it used to be. With the new version of Mag Howl, Precision Final Blows will grant you 1 stack of Magnificent Howl to proc the perk, reload after a kill, and it will give you a number of extremely high damage rounds depending on how many Precision Final Blows you got. And because I know what everyone was looking for, yes, 2 stacks of Mag Howl will let you 2-tap, 1 stack will let you 2 crit and 1 body. And it is worth noting Precision Final Blows will extend the perk's duration, meaning it will give you another stack. So there's 2 ways you can approach Magnificent Howl really. There's the minigame route, which is basically to go into 6s and try to get as many stacks as you can, reload, and then just brutalize whoever crosses your path. And to do this efficiently, you need a way of reloading the gun passively. If you manually reload the gun like you would normally, it will proc Mag Howl and you'll basically have to start over, granted with the help of having those boosted rounds. So if you really want to lean into trying to get a ton of Mag Howl stacks, say 5 Precision Blows for potentially 3 rapid 2-taps with the Mag Howl extension from Precision Final Blows, there are a couple ways you can go. 1, Transversive Steps, where sprinting will reload the gun passively. 2, holster mods. When your magazine starts running low, just back up and stow the weapon and let the holster mods load it back up. 3, get a slide shot roll and slide to reload the gun. Subsistence could work for this too, but slide shot is still the superior option for obvious reasons. Or option 4, any combination of the above. So with a way of reloading passively, you can keep your mag topped off and just keep getting stacks of Magnificent Howl. And this is a very high risk, very high reward play. High reward because the more stacks you have, the more 2-taps you can rack up. And I mean, you get a long enough streak going and you could potentially just massacre an entire team with Mag Howl. But it's high risk because this is Destiny 2. There's a lot of dumb shit in this game that can just kill you out of nowhere in a way that's largely out of your control. You could get solo supered, peek at the wrong time just as a Void Titan Hail Marys a scatter grenade at you, get frozen by an Osmiomancy Warlock, suspended by a Strand Hunter, the list goes on and on and on. So again, high risk, high reward. The other option is to just treat Lunas essentially like Ace of Spades. Mag Howl and Memento Mori are actually fairly similar damage perks. They will let you 2 crit and 1 body. You can refresh both of them by just reloading after a kill, and they're not on a timer like Kill Clip is. So you could use Mag Howl like a slightly different version of Mori and just reload after every kill and go for the 2 crit 1 body. I say different, arguably with Mag Howl being inferior because unlike Mori, which gives you 6 extra damage shots, with Mag Howl you get 1 very high damage shot, meaning if you miss that first crit, then you'll have to go for 3 crits again. However, unlike Mori, Mag Howl will not go away if you stow the weapon after proccing it, which is huge. You also don't have to reload shortly after getting a kill to proc it. You could get a kill, run all the way to the back of the map, and then reload, and you'll still have that Mag Howl shot. But with Mori, if you don't reload soon enough, then you will not be able to proc the perk. And of course, the other advantage Lunas has here is Lunas is an energy weapon, meaning you could combine it with a kinetic slot shotgun, and these days I would say the majority of our top tier shotguns are in fact in the kinetic slot. Obviously, conditional finality is the first choice here, but you could go with something like Fractithist or Chaperone, something like that if you prefer. And of course, if you're on a solar subclass, then you have access to those sweet harmonic mods on it as well. So of course, the way you choose to use Mag Howl is really up to you. But if you want to take Lunas into trials or comp, I would just use it like you would Mori, but in 6s, yeah, do whatever sounds more fun. And I will say I would absolutely, without question, take Mag Howl over Kill Clip or Harmony, as I'm generally not a fan of timed damage perks on 140s, just due to the fact that they do not decrease your time to kill, and with Mag Howl there, I would pretty well avoid the other damage perks and just go for Mag Howl if you want a damage booster. And for the reasons I mentioned before, if you plan on trying to go for high stacks of Mag Howl, then go for Slide Shot and only Slide Shot and combine it with backup mag so you can get the most utility out of Mag Howl. On the flip side, if you're planning on using it like Ace, then Slide Shot is still a fantastic choice, but Eye of the Storm or Enlightened Action are also very good options, and Heal Clip is very strong in PvP if you build into it, such as on a Solar Precious Scars Titan or a Hunter with Wormhusk and Marksman's Dodge. Now, if we're talking roles meant purely for dueling, then in that third column, Slide Shot is still an excellent choice, but Eye of the Storm and Enlightened Action are still perfectly viable as well. Slide Shot or Eye of the Storm would probably be my first choices. Then in the fourth column, I would go for Precision Instrument or Opening Shot. No, Precision Instrument will not let you 2-crit one body on Lunas at any resilience, nor will it let you 3-tap through an overshield, but it can help extend your range a little bit, which is very helpful on Lunas if you want to roll with good stability and handling. If you have that, your range is going to take a hit, and Precision Instrument can help alleviate this a little bit. But keep in mind, Precision Instrument is not as influential on a 140 as on a 120. It will not help your shot forgiveness, nor will it have nearly as much of an effect on your range as it would on something like Igneous. Then after Precision Instrument, my next choice would be Opening Shot, mainly for the aim assist boost, but that first shot range may still be helpful, though if they're at the edge of your effective range, you will still have to close that distance. So I think my preferred choice here would be Slide Shot with Precision Instrument, just because Slide Shot is fun, the passive reload can help you be a bit more aggressive, and while the range boost only lasts for your first shot, if you combine it with Precision Instrument, then the loss of range after that initial shot won't be quite as punishing, and that first shot stability from Slide always feels very nice as well. Now, as far as performance goes, this is another area where Lunas gets weird. The main issue you're going to run into on this weapon is just general weapon feel. Lunas does not feel like other 140s. Being a precision frame, it has the same style of recoil as the 180 precision frame hand cannons, and this feels extremely foreign when compared to other more traditional hand cannons, and I do think this is why Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten feel very weird. So let me explain. So the reason the recoil on Lunas feels so strange when compared to other hand cannons is because most hand cannons have what's called muzzle flip. And muzzle flip, bringing some firearms terminology in here, is where the tip of the muzzle flips upwards. And this is a factor on all of our guns, but it's very, very noticeable on most 140s as well as on 120s especially, that tip of the muzzle flipping upwards. But while Lunas does still have some muzzle flip, most of the recoil is basically straight back into your character's hand. So just to demonstrate what I mean here, taking a look at Rose's recoil first, you can see that when it recoils, the tip of your barrel goes up pretty violently. But then looking at Luna's, you can see the muzzle flip isn't as violent because the recoil is basically coming directly into your character's hand, and so it looks and feels very different when you actually use the weapon. And while the recoil of Luna's does have the benefit of being very controllable, it has one major downside. So taking a look at Rose again, look at the recoil here. Notice that when it recoils upwards, the weapon model also deviates to the right, which leaves the center of your screen clear and allows you to better see what your target is doing. And on the flip side, looking at Luna's here, when Luna's recoils, that straight backwards recoil actually makes the firearm obstruct your target completely because there is no deviation to the recoil. It just comes straight back, and the result is, of course, that your target is obstructed, which means if they strafe, if they crouch, you will not be able to see it until the gun resets. And this can be a problem in gunfights, which is one of the reasons you may have a harder time hitting your shots with Luna's, and it also contributes to why Luna's recoil just feels so strange. That very straight backwards recoil style of Luna's means that it feels less like a hand cannon and more like a very rangy, very slow firing, and very heavy hitting sidearm. This is the reason that precision frame hand cannons do tend to feel better on a controller, because sidearms generally feel better on a controller as well. It's also why Luna's can feel awkward on mouse and keyboard. That's not to say that the recoil is bad. In fact, looking at it objectively, it really should could be the most ideal type of recoil you can have just due to its controllability and general lack of deviation. But if you're more used to traditional 140s or 120s, then the more jarring recoil of those sorts of weapons will just feel more natural. And hey, sometimes that precision frame recoil feels great. There were times with Luna's where I felt like I absolutely could not miss, and other times where I was really struggling to land my shots just because of how weird the weapon felt. And that's all pretty well due to the different type of recoil it has. What I will say is, due to the recoil, Luna's is probably an incredible option for controller players, since reticle friction will help you stay on target and allow you to essentially just brute force your way past target obstruction. And while I'm still far from this point, I do think that if you took the time to master it on mouse and keyboard, that very low, very controllable recoil would turn Luna's into a very deadly and effective weapon. Now, that aside, the only other issues I had with this hand cannon is, again, the stat spreads are very odd on it, and it really does not take flinch very well. And for that reason alone, if you can master Luna's, then with sunsetting being reversed with the final shape, it's probably time to pull out Not Forgotten again, or if you don't have it, buy it from the exotic kiosk in the tower. Yes, Not Forgotten's handling is awful, but it does have Mag Howl, and it does at least have Zen Moment, which will help with flinch massively. But that aside, do I think Luna's is a good hand cannon? Yes, I actually do think it's a very good hand cannon, but it's also one with a steep learning curve. If you're used to how normal 140s feel, then Luna's is going to throw you off when you use it, and it probably will for a long time. This is a weapon you will have to take time to really learn and master, and if you can do so, then I actually think it's a very good hand cannon, and it is quite possibly the best hand cannon available for controller players in the 140 archetype. So I do think it's a pretty good hand cannon. I do also know it has some very weird quirks and a sharp learning curve that might not make learning it worth it to you, so keep that in mind before you dedicate days to farming it from Onslaught. Now, for PvE, like I said, Luna's does have some options here. Third column, Discord, Heal Clip, and Subsistence. Fourth column, really any of the damage perks will be fine, but Incandescent is probably the real star here. Like, Mag Howl on paper sounds like it would be great in PvE, and in normal content it's fine, but in endgame content it just feels very lackluster. If you really want a damage perk on there, I would go with Desperate Measures, so that you can always have it procced, since both weapon and ability kills will proc the perk, and if you get weapon kills followed shortly after by ability kills, then you can get up to 3 stacks of Desperate Measures, with a 10% damage buff at 1 stack and a 30% at 3, and in PvE that is not hard to accomplish at all. But even then, I would probably still just stick with Incandescent, given that solar classes are extremely strong in PvE right now, and Incandescent synergizes with them perfectly. Now, in that third column, I would use Subsistence if you're using Desperate Measures, just so you can take advantage of the damage for longer, and I would go with Heal Clip if you're on Incandescent, just because that survivability is generally very helpful in PvE. But as far as hand cannons go, I do think there are still better choices overall, such as Sunshot, which is probably the most obvious choice, or maybe Zali's Bane with explosive payload and Incandescent as a couple of examples. But if you like Luna's in PvE, don't let me stop you from using it. Throw that bitch on and have fun. So overall, I'm pretty happy with Luna's, way more than I thought I would be. I think I may spend a few PvP sessions using it exclusively and trying to really learn this weapon, because Luna's does definitely offer some uniqueness that other hand cannons don't have, and like I said, if you take the time to learn it, then I do think this is a very effective weapon. That is all for me today, Guardians. If you enjoyed the video, then do me a favor and hit that like button and leave me a comment with the role you want on Luna's and your thoughts on this hand cannon in general. I'm curious to see how everyone's feeling about it. And also, as always, the best way to support me is to hit that subscribe button with the bell icon and share this video with anyone you think might find it helpful or entertaining. And as always, don't forget to check out my Twitch in the description as well, as I'm planning on streaming regularly as we approach Final Shape, doing everything from PvP to just prepping for the next DLC. For now, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, Guardians.